dignitaries on the dais, dignitaries off the dais, learned professionals, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. This particular session is based on the theme, how we can make the businesses competitive through effective governance. We have two learned speakers to talk about that in detail. I'm just going to do a bit of a context setting, putting the perspectives in the right framework so that on that basis, the whole architecture of the session can be then built by the two learned speakers. All of you would tend to agree with me that the world is changing, and it is changing very, very rapidly and significantly. I am not only talking about the last 2.5, 3 years when the world as a whole was impacted by COVID-19 pandemic situation, but even otherwise, if you look back 2 or 3 decades, there have been some very, very significant changes which have taken place in this world, which have changed the way we live our life and also changed the way the businesses function in the marketplace. It's a VUCA world, highly volatile, very, very uncertain, hugely complex, very ambiguous, and the fear of uncertainty is always lurking at the back of our mind. You never really know what might happen in business, in environment, and it might also impact you as an individual. In this VUCA business and economic environment, we have large number of so-called startups or the new age companies, and we also have a lot of gold-plated old companies which are still sustaining, existing in the marketplace. But when you look at the performance of many of these businesses, you find that many businesses have profitless turnover. They have a great top line, but end of the day, there is no profit. Many businesses have cashless profit. They have profit as per the accounting concept, but then there's no cash, there's no liquidity. Profitless turnover, cashless profit, but when you look at the valuation of some of these businesses, wow, skyrocketing, soaring very, very high. India has over 115 unicorns as of today, and the number is growing week by week. Out of top 10 unicorns of India, only 3 are making profit. Please note this statement. Only 3 unicorns out of top 10 unicorns in India are making profit, but they have a great top line. The point that I'm emphasizing now is, today the measures of corporate performance have undergone a change. We now look at the performance of the company from ESG perspective and also broadly from the perspective of ability of the company to be able to create value, ability of the company to preserve that value, and ability of the company to enhance that value on a sustainable basis going forward. That is the crux that stakeholders are looking for from the companies today. The landscape of business is continuously evolving and changing. And if you want to stay in the business long term, and if you want to sustain in the market on a long-term basis, you don't want to become Nokia, Kodak, those kind of companies which used to be a big brand at one point of time, but not really existing in the marketplace now, then you must also evolve with the times and be aware of how the business landscape is changing. We're having some very, very disruptive business models. The world's largest travel car company does not own a single car of its own. Look at the model, Uber. The world's largest travel lodging company does not own a single hotel property. That's Airbnb. And the world's largest retailer, Amazon, does not own a single brick and mortar store. These are amazingly disruptive business models which were unheard of till about decades back But today, these are the realities of business in the 21st century. Technology is transforming how we live our life and how we work. I don't need to name those terms. We all are aware about artificial intelligence, blockchain, big data, machine learning, whatnot. Demographic shifts are changing the work patterns, and they're changing the corporate behaviors, and they're changing how the businesses are now required to hunt for talent and be able to retain that talent. That's even more greater challenge for the corporates today. Globalization has had its positives and negatives. India has, and for that matter, most of the countries of the world, they have grown exponentially because of the integration, interconnectedness as the result of globalization. But the downside is, if a butterfly flutters anywhere in the world, it causes ripples everywhere in the world. That means you are affected by Ukraine war, you are affected by Israel-Gaza war, even though you may not have anything specific to do, and you are far away from the boundaries of those countries, but nonetheless, because of globalization, you are impacted by what is happening across the world. Customer is the start point and the end point of any business. You are there because there is a customer. Customer expectations are changing dramatically. Earlier, we simply used to believe you have the philosophy of customer satisfaction, and that's good enough policy to be able to stay afloat in the marketplace. But today, the customers are not only satisfied with the simple philosophy of customer satisfaction, what they require and look for is customer delight. You delight a customer when the customer, by using your product, by using your services, says, wow, that's the customer delight that customers today are looking for. Climate change, ESG dimensions are becoming important. Corporate social responsibility is becoming important. Government is doing what it can do at the government level. Corporates are contributing to social development by way of CSR mandatory provision. But I think what is more important is ISR, individual social responsibility. What is that I can do as an individual? What is that each one of you can do individually? That's what ultimately matters. 144 crore strong population of India, world number one, beating China. Individual social responsibility is the way forward with a view to building up the kind of quality of life that we are looking for our people of the country. And there is, of course, increased focus on sustainability. 21st century is different. We got to change the way we create business models, the way we create business strategy, the way we implement the business strategy. Today we are looking at speed, complexity, risk, change, and surprise. These are the factors which you got to take care and deal with while taking your business forward in a sustainable business. So the theme of this session is all about governance, and that's, mind my words, that is the future for the businesses going forward. Some of the key guru mantras for effective governance: we CMAs are experts in managing resources, and we are the people who can really drive the businesses through efficient resource management. Resilience is very important. COVID impacted many of the business sectors. Some of them were positively impacted, some of them were negatively impacted. But out of those which were negatively impacted, some of them bounced back quickly, some of them took a little more time, some of them are still struggling to get back to their normal. That was basically because of the resiliency of their business model. Those businesses bounced back much faster who had resilient business models as compared to the other people who were not having resilient business models. Even in the previous session, speakers were talking about we must constantly grow by learning. And that I mean by that is you got to learn, you got to unlearn, and you got to relearn in your journey towards the corporate career and your life. there is a huge focus now as part of the governance architecture on ethics and human values. Every listed company has a code of conduct that's mandated by LODR, SEBI regulations, whatnot. Once I was addressing a conference of corporate leaders, and I just posed 4 basic questions to them. My first question was, do you know that your company has a code of conduct? Everyone raised their hand. Someone raised both of their hands. Yes, sir, it is there. My next question was, have you read it? Some of the hands came down this time. Then I asked my third question, have you understood it? Still some further hands came down. And my last question was, do you live the code of conduct? That is the crux. Having a code of conduct documented, displayed on the website of the company, splashed all over the company's premises is a good beginning first step. But ultimately, people have to start living the code of conduct. That's how the governance is going to be efficient and governance is going to become most optimum. You got to be agile. And you got to have and maintain soft skills and a human touch. Whatever technology you may deal with, end of the day, it is the human touch that matters in all governance practices that a company follows, either through its board or through its employees. Professor from Ahmedabad, strategy professor, talked about DEI in his presentation. Diversity, equity, and inclusion. Normally when we talk about diversity, we restrict ourselves to dealing with gender diversity. Have a women director on the board of a company, good enough. There are legal provisions, you've got to ensure that. But diversity is not only about gender. Diversity of thoughts, diversity of culture, diversity of engagement, diversity has very many different manifestations and very many different dimensions which the companies must duly take care of. Culture is the key. What kind of culture do you have in a company? Contrasting examples, we have various large corporates, even within India and the worldwide, which have widely divergent different corporate cultures. And that's where the board has to duly take care of to build about an effective corporate culture. Board evaluation is already mandated by SEBI as part of the board exercise every year to be done. So, in governance, the board has to link the strategy, risk, and the global disruptions which are happening all over. And I have proposed at many fora, companies must start looking at organizing one specific board meeting at least 1 year, at least every year, with single agenda item of ESG. You have a board meeting where there are 35 items, 40 items, one of them could be ESG also. But here the suggestion is the best practice that some of the corporates are following the world over, as well as in India, have one specific board meeting only to discuss ESG agenda. Many companies also have started going in for ESG committee, which is not yet mandated by SEBI or LODR, but they have framed, constituted ESG committee. And we also talk about organizing or making sure that every CAPEX proposal that is put up to the board, it is supported, supplemented by a note on ESG perspective and ESG dimensions. Maintain the focus on cybersecurity issues, and you must do business continuity planning. Governance must be system-based, policy-driven, and of course, good governance starts with good intentions. The future of business is full of opportunities and challenges, and those businesses will be able to survive and ride the rough times who are able to adapt to emerging trends. End of the day, it's not only valuation of a company that matters. Valuations are temporary. You compare the valuations of any business pre-COVID and now, there would be hell of a lot of difference, either on the upside or on the downside, depending upon which sector you are operating in. But valuations are temporary, values are forever. You got to focus on ethics and code of conduct. The message is loud and clear. Governance is the key. Either you shape up or you will have to ship out from the market. Thank you so much.